What's going on, guys? Welcome on back to the Second and Short podcast, The Cheap Seats. This is episode 15 of our fantasy football, redraft dynasty podcast. I am your host, Tyler Lauder, joined with our fantasy dynasty expert, Jason. Let's go ahead and we're going to jump right in. Today's episode, being episode 15, it's a mini milestone. And the Second and Short podcast has been around for over a year, but this Cheap Seats podcast hit 15. So we're going to do a bigger episode. We're going to hit 3 fan questions that can puzzle commissioners or just long-term dynasty bets, or even like dynasty, rookies to this. Then we're going to talk about some overreactions in the dynasty football world, where things are more so going to impact the 2022 season and startups and whatnot, and if we think it's an overreaction or not. And then we're going to end with some trade review. Our dynasty leagues that have been going on, we constantly send each other messages on, hey, here's a trade I got going out. What do you think about it? And then sometimes it's like, I don't know, I don't like it. And then it's like, well, I just accepted it. Like, it's like things like that. Yeah. But we're going to go over trade review, and we're going to review each other's trades and just kind of share them to you guys and just kind of see the successes that we're having or failures.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, we get those messages at not the most opportune times, or we just don't check our messages. And by the time we do reply to each other, it's like, oh yeah, I already accepted it.
So many times.
So how do you feel about it?
So many times, like you'll send me like a trade message, or like I'll be at work or something, and I'll see it on my phone and I'll swipe it over to the right. And in my head, I read it and I replied because I touched it. And then I go back in and I'm like, oh, I missed that message. My bad. But let's jump in. We've been delaying. So the first fan question that we're going to discuss is failing to set a full active lineup. Is it ever okay in any situation? Because this is where we get into the conversation of tanking, which is such a ticky-tack thing, because I believe tanking is okay. I believe if you want to give me $50 to not set a lineup the entire year and waste $50 for the number one pick, I don't care. That's me. But what's your thought on not setting a fully active lineup? Is it ever okay?
Now, if you don't set a full lineup, I'm totally fine with it. I mean, I'm the person that, when I'm doing my draft, I don't look at bye weeks. Reason being is because I can sacrifice 1 week for the bigger picture. And that's what I've explained to people. They're like, you should set a full lineup. I said, and when I ask why, they're like, well, it's just unfair. You're giving somebody a win. I'm like, yeah, but I'm also taking the loss. It counterbalances. So, and sometimes you get these leagues, like I'm in a league that has 5 bench spots. That's it. I stream my defenses. I luckily got a premier defense in this league. They're sitting there on a bye week. I don't care. I didn't get no points for them. The structure that they have, it is wins and losses, and then the tiebreakers, total points. I don't like the total points tiebreaker. I prefer going head to head as your tiebreaker first, then going to total points. Sometimes you don't get that luxury, but I look at it as one. You're going to take, if you're going to take the loss, it's going to hurt your team, and you're also sacrificing those points. So I'm totally fine with, if you're on bye weeks, not saying that. Now, if you just neglect and don't set one, that's a different story. That's a whole different conversation. Because if you've been setting your lineups, and this you playing, you got a buddy you're playing that needs that win, and you don't set a lineup, that kind of falls in the collusion aspect that we'll talk about a little bit later. But I'm fine with not setting a full lineup if need be.
So, and this episode is strictly dynasty based, because we're talking, like, if you don't set a lineup in redraft, then you just don't care about fantasy football. That's all that is, because it's over for you. But in dynasty, having a bad record comes with a little cherry on top of a really shitty season. But you get that sweet cherry of a high draft pick. So it's a hard conversation, because honestly, just because somebody risks their entire year for a high draft pick does not mean it's going to turn out, because while some years it might be Najee Harris or Jamar Chase, other years it's Bishop Sankey or it's Corey Davis, who's okay, but number one pick, is supposed to be a game changer. That's the whole point of rookie drafts and Dynasty is to flip a bad team around. Now, scenario, because this is what has happened to me. So I have a league where how I do the positioning for rookie picks to prevent tanking is your whatever tournament. So we have 16 teams, for example. The top 8 teams make the playoffs. The next 4 teams are in a mini tournament at the end of the year to compete for pick 1.5. So if you finished 8th, you actually can get that 1.5. You win 2 games. And then the bottom 4 are based on record. And then what I do from there is those bottom 4 record, whoever has the least potential points actually earns the 1.1. But you have to be in that bottom 4. So like if you had the least potential points out of everybody in the league, but you were like 6th, you're not in it. But that's how I do it to determine 1.1, and it prevents tanking. So it's like, sure, you got to lose those games, but just because you lose games doesn't mean you get the pick because of potential points. So my suggestion to this of people saying not starting a full lineup or anything like that, make your draft standings going into the rookie draft based on potential points on top of record. Like stagger it, because if somebody's going to lose all their games, but they're sitting Alvin Kamara on their bench and they're sitting Jamar Chase and not Patrick Mahomes this week. You know what I'm saying? Like really good players, those potential points are still going to add up. You'll see it add up where it's like, wait a second, these guys are actually really good. They're just not trying to win. So you can combat this if you don't like it. In my opinion, I don't really care if somebody tanks, somebody gets the 1-1. Most of my leagues, I'm trying to trade for that person that I think is going to have the 1-1 a year out. So like during the 2021 rookie draft, I was drafting at like 111. I was like, hey, do you want my first? I'll trade you my first for next year's first straight up. Because in my head, I believe they're going to be the worst team. So I want them to lose later on. But that's realistically, if you're really active, most teams shouldn't have their own first overall pick unless you're in a bad trading league. But that's my thoughts. So what are your thoughts, continue on this, on using potential points to determine draft order at a certain point?
Yeah, so this opens up another discussion I actually was going to bring up on my future show, but we can discuss it now, is how you draft. I've got 2 different leagues that use different draft strategies. One league to prevent tanking, we do a lottery. The commissioner is really awesome engineer who devised a actual lottery system with a vacuum cleaner and a 5-gallon bucket. We do in reverse order. Basically, if you win the league, you get 1 ping pong ball down to your 6, who has 6 ping pong balls, and we do reverse order. Then we flip it, and then the worst team has the most ping pong balls, and you go from the 1-1 to 1-5. So you get that in there, which is really cool. I mean, that prevents tanking. And also, a lot of leagues use the toilet bowl system that has your playoff teams and then has the reverse playoff to see who gets the 1-1. And I like both systems. I'm not opposed to others. There's leagues that I'm in that actually have a 113 pick that the toilet bowl goes for an extra. It's basically 2-1. They say 113, but actually 2-1. And you go by your points, just like you were saying, your potential points and record, and that's how you set your baseline up. Then you have the toilet bowl for that extra pick there. So, like I said, I mean, I'm not against tanking. I'm against tanking when it's like when you have the star power and you're not setting them in your lineup just to try to bolster your team to make it a juggernaut.
Yeah. So an example right here is, and we're going to talk about in this in trade review, but I picked up an orphan this previous season. I had somebody contact me and they said, hey, this league will be free for this year and next year. Do you want the team? And I said, absolutely. Because that means I have a chance to win money without paying money for 2 years. And it also lets me be relaxed and I can have fun trading without worrying about what I'm doing and potentially wrecking my team. And everybody in that league keeps asking me, why am I starting blah, 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 blah? Like, why am I starting Mike Williams every week? Why am I starting, Cooper Kupp every week when I had him? I traded him. But it was because I'm going to set my most optimal lineup. If I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. If I believe that tanking should be done, there's like a way to do it that is like, it's classy. It makes you look good, makes you look cool, where I will trade my better assets for young upcoming assets plus picks. That way I'm going to lose because I don't have Cooper Kupp anymore, who I, traded away. And I do these types of trades and deals, but I'm always setting my best lineup because you know what? I'm 1-5 right now. If I lose a game, I'm still last place in the league. So why not try and beat the number one team in the league? Why not? What's the worst that could happen? I go 2-5 and I'm still last place. Like, it'll be okay. And so I think you still need to try and be competitive. And I mean, like, if you have to go out and start, I don't even know, Jack Doyle, because you lost Darren Waller and everything, don't leave Darren Waller in your lineup. Go start Jack Doyle. Who cares if he gets you 0.5 points? That doesn't matter. You're trying to play the game. That's the thing. Just play the game. But I honestly don't care if people tank. I really don't. That's just the thing. But if you want to make your league mates not mad, just put somebody there. They don't have to be good. Just put somebody there. So let's move on to our next question. And this can be a very short segment because we think the same, because it's not that we're dynasty experts or we're dynasty veterans and everything. It's just we think alike in the terms of all's fair in dynasty football. Vetoing trades, is it ever okay? And if you say no, I want you to play devil's advocate and I want you to try and think of one situation that you would allow it.
Okay, yeah, I'm totally against vetoing trades.
Yes.
Unless collusion is adamant. Like, I mean, if you're trading Mike Williams for a 4th round pick, there's some questions to be raised. Or if you're trading like Christian McCaffrey for like King and Drake and
Fab.
If it's blatantly obvious, there's something going on. Now, the only time, and that's the only time.
So collusion. Collusion is when you can identify collusion, which is a very gray area in the circle. It's slippery slope. It's tiptoeing the line because you can never confirm people are colluding unless one person says we're colluding. That's the only way you can ever confirm it. So because of that, it's very hard because I have a league and there are people that are always trying to find loopholes, which is, I think finding loopholes in dynasty leagues is the best thing ever. Because if you find a loophole and it pisses off enough people, it becomes a rule and not a loophole. So I think finding those loopholes, I once got kicked out of a league. This is back when I was like 18, 19 in a dynasty league. So like a long time ago, because every year I'd find like 1 or 2 loopholes in the system. And they'd be like, you're always trying to cheat and everything. I said, I'm not cheating, but I'm making the league better because every year we apply things that are loopholes because I'm finding them. So back to what you're saying, I agree. If you can obviously see it's colluding, like, hey, I'll give you 10 fab bucks and you just give me Jamar Chase. Like, okay, easy now. We see what you're doing. But just because my values don't equal Jason's values does not mean the trade is vetoable. Vetoable. It's a vetoable. That's a hard thing to say, but that's just where it's at. Yeah. What are your thoughts on people like even like polling? I guess that's the same thing as vetoing, but like I saw this one question. It was on like Dynasty Nerds, and they were like, our commissioner has final say. There's no veto, but the commissioner always steps in and can cancel a trade. Like, do you think that's too much power to have?
Yes. Now, this is, I actually got kicked out of a league as well because I found a loophole because there was a Wednesday night game. Waivers didn't close until kickoff Thursday night. There's a Wednesday night game. I picked up a player before the Wednesday night game, plugged him into my lineup. He played, and then I dropped him. Thursday. So he got locked for 3 days after having a solid game. I was told that was cheating. And I said, how is it cheating? Waivers was open.
Mm-hmm.
I added him legally, first come, first serve waiver basis.
Yep.
And then I dropped him. I needed him this week. I had a bye. I plugged him in. I don't need him. I need the roster spot back because I had somebody coming off IR because there was a league that had an IR spot. So I could promote them on Thursday off the IR. And they was like, well, that's cheating. You're manipulating the system. I was like, no, it's well within the system. And it became a big thing. And then it got to the point where I said, I sent out a trade and the commissioner was pissed off. I sent out a trade. I sent out McCaffrey for 4 firsts.
Mm-hmm. This is last year, right?
Yes. This was
which
last
is
year.
Very reasonable.
And he got mad because the team I traded was the second best team in the league that had multiple firsts over the next 3 years that could afford those firsts. I was middle of the road.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a rebuild, and he kicked me out of the league. He dropped he changed my login information, kicked me out of the league.
Bitter Betty.
Yes. So, and I think in most of my leagues, we have the same commissioner. He does not participate in the league, which I think is great.
That's fantastic. Does he get a commissioner's fee? Does he get you guys pay him out?
We always champion always tips out.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. I love it then. I would commissioner so many leagues if people pay me. Like I would do that for a living if people would pay me enough.
Yeah. We'll always like our league, like one of the league fees is $200. We always put in $225, and the extra 25 out is we always tip out the commissioner.
Absolutely.
Whoever gets it just gives it to whoever wins the league gives it to the commish. Because I think having the unbiased commissioner makes your league great. Now, I'm a commissioner of a few leagues. Sometimes personal bias does creep up. You're a commissioner, you know this. All right, so yeah, we have a checks and balance in there. So we have the leagues I commission that we have the checks and balance. We have 2 other owners in there that are non-vested, and we have an outside source that we use. It's just, typically it's one of the guys I know in fantasy football community that we're like, do you suspect conclusion? Because it is a great area. And, we kind of have I guess you could say a panel that, that looks at league rules, looks at league changes, and kind of looks at, possible collusion aspects. But I think one person having absolute power, if they are a participant in the league, you need that checks and balance, man.
So, moving on to the next question, because you were talking about accountability, people you were talking about how you picked up a guy, you only him that week, but then you got rid of him. So he was kind of like a rental to you. Speaking of which, rental trades is what we're going to talk about next. Now, this is a very interesting subject because this is a very rare thing, I feel. I don't think in dynasties we see this happen that often. Because people I feel like are worried about it. It's a gray area. It feels a little dirty. But rental trades, how do you feel about them? Are they ever okay? Is it ever okay for me to give you something for 1 week and then you return it to me? But because I gave it to you for a week, you give me a little bonus on the side for what I did.
Now, see, we talked about something. I'm against rental trades. Mm-hmm. Because I kind of think that, in my personal opinion, now this is personally, I view as a form of collusion. Okay. So you're like, because the other league mates, you might be in that playoff hunt for that last spot, and you're making that trade right before trade deadline. The 2 weeks right before trade deadline cuts off, and we don't look at this week. We look at like week 10, 11, opposed to week 7, 8. Yeah. So, not a lot of people look at that. A lot of people have that short sight and they don't look at the bigger picture. A lot of people do. And that's where they bring up possible collusion aspects, because they're saying, well, you're just helping him out so he can make the playoffs or something. Because if you look at it, if I help you out and you miss the playoffs and that pick comes back and it's higher than what I normally would have had, they could be like, well, you're just buffering. So you got a little slippery slope and gray area as well. I know you're a big proponent of rental trades, so let's hear your side.
Is it not like trading stocks? Like, shouldn't you be allowed to sell a stock when you want and then buy it back at a different price? Shouldn't you be allowed to do that? Like, if you rent me a player for 1 week, hey, you rent me a player, I'm gonna send you a 4th round pick for Zach Ertz, because this kind of happened in a trade that I'm doing for Zach Ertz. And now I get Darren Waller back next week. I have Dawson Knox as well. I don't need Zach Ertz anymore. He's just going to sit on my bench. And I'm going to send him to you for that same 4th round pick I gave you, but you're going to give it back to me. But I'm going to give you a 3rd round pick or something. You know what I mean? Or I'm going to say, keep that 4th round pick. Here's Zach Ertz back for your troubles. I got Zach Ertz for a week. You get a 4th round pick. Like, don't you kind of see how that kind of like works out? Like, I got 10 fantasy points. You got a 4th round pick.
Now, this is another thing that I'll defend you on this. Now, I'm going to defend you on this because I'm also a proponent of, if it's a pay league, you pay your entry fee, you run your team how you see fit.
Yes.
So, I mean, I see that, but I still think it's in that gray area of collusion.
It's dirty. It's not a clean thing to do, but it's
very dirty.
It's not illegal though.
No, it's not illegal unless your league bylaws states no rental trading. It's fully legal. I
have been yet to be in one that prevents it. Now, another thing this could do is I just feel like it's all about like a kick. Like if I give you a 3rd round pick I got a 4th and you got to keep Ertz. Essentially, all I did is I said, hey, I'm going to let you move your 4th round pick up 1 round, and you're going to loan me Ertz to get me my whatever points for the week, and you're going to get him back. And all that happened was I earned some fantasy points and you moved up X amount of spots in a draft. I think this is just as like, how is this any different than you selling me a package for a big player, and then I turn around and sell parts of that package for a piece, and you're like, wait a second, I could have gotten that for this player, but you got a 1st round pick for Chase Ed. You know what I mean? I think it's all fair in Dynasty, because once it's mine, I can do whatever I want with it.
Yeah, but I want to point out 2 things on that. One, primarily, the easiest. It's the gentleman's agreement.
Yes.
That says you're going. Now, if you don't do that, then you gotta factor that in. Also, this goes back to our first topic of discussion. Mm-hmm. If you're making that trade to fill a lineup that your league makes bitch about, what's the issue? So I totally see your point on it. But like I said, what do you do if you trade me a player, then I say screw you and go fuck yourself? I'm trading him back. You
can do that. That's the risk of like a rental, because we made an agreement, and if it's not in a big old, but here, that's the problem though, because I feel like so many people say, so I have had lots of deals where people have agreed to them because I don't just send out trades that often. I know a lot of people probably think this is weird, but I will invade your DMs and say, hey, let's talk. And then I'm going to get you to talk. And I'm going to dirty used car salesman my way into this deal is what I'm going to try and do. And I move the needle. I don't like flip flop of like, this is what I want. This is what you want. Let's meet in the middle. I just push my side a little bit until you say yes. That's what I do. So within this, the biggest thing is I've had so many trades fall through where I've said, hey, Jason, I'm going to send you this, send me this. We talk for about 30 minutes, long trade discussion, which is exhausting. And you say yes. And then I send it to you and you have a fucking change of heart and it pisses me off. However, until you click accept, you haven't clicked accept. Simple
well, let's go ahead and correct one thing that you never send me trade offers because you have blackballed me. You have blackballed me on trade discussions.
That's
when
not
I was
true.
trying to say whatever. I was trying to trade you Kyler Murray. You wouldn't even return my DM. So I don't even want to hear that bullshit.
If you're playing, I'm going to say it right now. If you're playing the Houston Oilers in our league, because I own their first round pick, I might send you a trade so they lose. because then I benefit from it. You get a W. We all win. It's a win-win. People call that colluding right there, but I call that that's called managing.
Strategy.
It's like checks and balances. I'm making sure everything's where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Sorry, Houston Oilers. I'm putting you on blast. You're last in the league, and I want you to stay last in the league. That's simple as that.
So again, like I said, we made that adamant in our group chat today that you sending out trade offers, and I had to make sure
for a little context. I tagged 3 owners differently, saying, "Hey man, check your DM, send you an offer." About 10 minutes later, "Hey man, check your ID." And then after the third one, I sent it. Jason, pretend tagged himself, sent offer in there. "Thanks, man. I appreciate." As if I also sent him one, but I didn't. Because I didn't need
because he's blackballed. He's blackballed in the trade talk. So
you just don't have what I need right now, but you might later. Right now that's all. But
you play for the future, remember?
That's I'm listening. So let's go ahead and we're gonna put a pin in this, because these are all we can talk about these every week and kind of get different scenarios and everything. And we'll touch on these later on in the year, because off season we could have a whole episode talked about vetoing and tanking. We really could, and we will.
Yeah.
So let's get into our overreactions. Now, we do this every week. It's called Dynasty Therapy. We're providing Dynasty clarity from up in the cheap seats, hence the name, where it's hard to see everything, but you still get the same entertainment value. We're going to provide that clarity for you so you can see better. Overreaction. I'm going to ask you if this is an overreaction by the Dynasty community or not. And you're just going to say it's an overreaction or it's not. And then we're going to kind of discuss it. Very simple game. Okay.
Right.
So the first one, I'm going to go in reverse order here, is that Jonathan Taylor is the RB1 in startups going forward.
I think it's a slight overreaction, not much, but I think it's a slight.
Like, he's in the discussion right now.
Yes, most definitely.
I also think it's an overreaction. And I know a lot of people are like, well, Dalvin Cook's hurt, and Saquon Barkley's hurt, and Christian McCaffrey's hurt, and Zeke's older. And I'm just like, yeah, you robots. I get that. However, if Christian McCaffrey plays 8 games, he can score as much as every running back outside of Derrick Henry in the NFL. He honestly could. Like, we were just talking about it. He'd only played, what did he play? He played 9 quarters, and he had outscored 6 full games of Miles Sanders. Like, that's how good he is. So I do think it's pump the brakes. I know people are like very, what is the mindset? Like, we're just thinking about right now.
They have no foresight.
And
they're short-sighted.
We're too worried about right now. And while I do think John Taylor is there, and I think everybody, I might post this clip on TikTok, who knows, everybody on TikTok, all the fantasy gurus and everything, all you armchair quarterbacks, I'm going to say like 90% of the community said Jonathan Taylor is going to get a downfall because Marlon Mack's there, because Nyheim Hines is there, because he doesn't get the goal line touch, he doesn't get the catch, blah, 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 blah. And you know who I'm really putting on blast? Myself. Because I also fucking said that. I also said that because I just wasn't sure. But I now believe he is in that top 5. I believe in startups, he should be one of the first 5 running backs taken. I don't care what order it is, but I don't think it's like a lock that he is the number 1 running back.
No, I think he's in the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
I think, if you take him 1, sure, I'm not going to hate on you. Nope. If you take him 5, I'm not going to hate on. I think that 1 through 5 range in a startup is great range. You could take him anywhere there.
If you get him outside of 5, then you got to steal in your startup.
Right.
So now let's move on. Let's talk about a rookie, Ja'Marr Chase. If you saw the stat, if you know, but I'll explain anyways. So he is now leading the NFL in receiving yards after this week. Granted, Tyler Lockett could have 300 yards on Monday Night Football at the time of recording this, because that's what Tyler Lockett do. Now, he has set a record for most receiving yards through a player's first 7 games in the NFL. Everybody's kind of wrong on him. What was it? He had no catches in preseason, hadn't played for 18 months, but we all forget about one thing. He's playing with like his best mate. Like these guys would run a fraternity together if the NFL wasn't a thing. And that's Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase. They're brothers. I heard him on Mic'd Up, and Ja'Marr Chase was like, oh man, Joe ain't gonna like this. Watch this. He gonna be mad at me. And Joe walks over and Jamar Chase goes, why'd you overthrow me? why didn't you just hit me in stride and everything? And Joe's like, why didn't you fit? Like, it's a fun altercation. But they were able to joke at each other. And then Jamar Chase still dropped like 140 yards and a touchdown that game. So the question is, the overreaction to the statement is, Jamar Chase will be the top asset in 2022. So we're talking, this is the Mike Evans, this is the Juju, this is the Justin Jefferson. We see this all the time. Receiver has breakout great year. He's young. He's the 1-1 in startups next year.
All right, so let's go ahead and put myself on blast. You put yourself on blast earlier.
Yep,
I want to put myself on blast.
Accountability.
Earlier this week, I stated that Jamar Chase would not be the guy this week going against the Ravens. I was dead ass wrong.
You're wrong by a little bit.
But
a couple hundred yards.
By a little bit. But I think that's overreaction. I think, the shiny new toy coming into the league, teams don't know what he's capable of. They get a little bit of tape on him and they don't know how to defend against him. That's what I was telling you. I was really thinking the Ravens with that defense, they would key and make everybody else beat them. They did not. I mean, he is a freak of nature. He's got pure athletic raw ability. There's no denying that.
He is exactly what everybody was saying he was after the 2019 season. The best receiver in college. This guy's a lock in the NFL. We all just got kind of clouded by that season out.
Yeah, and because we all thought ring rust, field rust, mentality, going through it. He was famous for saying they don't have the white end of the ball. I can't judge it really well in preseason. So, yeah, I mean, I'll hold myself accountable. Now, is he the 1-1 receiver coming off the board in a startup next year? Dynasty-wise? No. Is he in the top 3? Yes.
I would say he's fully entrenched in wide receiver 1 area. And I think in startups that aren't super flex, I think he's in round 1 territory with those top tier running backs. I do think that it is a slight overreaction because I just gave all those examples that we've seen over and over. And I'm sure if I kept going back, I'm sure there were more. Now there are times when those overreactions are right. I wasn't playing Dynasty back then, but I'm sure in 1997, Randy Moss is the wide receiver 1-1 next year was correct. That was correct, but very rare instances.
Actually, it was not the wide receiver 1. He was not hyped up because everybody was scared about his off-field issues because Randy Moss actually went to college where I live. So I followed him, his career in college quite often. He's a freak of nature and really one of the nicest guys you ever meet.
Some would say, like me, the greatest receiver to ever play the game. It's a bold statement. I stick to it. But go on, Jamar Chase.
But Jamar Chase, I see him as Justin Jefferson 2.0 his rookie year. He burst onto the scene, had flashes of brilliance because of the raw athletic ability. Once teams got to know his weaknesses, where he doesn't like the ball and everything, they start playing these blind spots, start playing his weaknesses. You've seen a little fall off. Now, not saying Justin Jefferson's garbage. Yeah. He's not. But I think once you see that style of play and you learn how to defend it, you're going to see Jamar Chase come down to earth, basically. But I think this year, he's got the Rookie of the Year locked up by far. I think they might as well just engrave his name on it. Now, barring any injury, let's not wish no injury on somebody. But yeah, I think he's in that round 1 discussion. Latest I would see him going is on the turn at maybe 2-2.
I think the turn is a perfect spot for him in startups next year because he is in that Adams Hill conversation. And I think that's where we're going to see him. Like, people are going to get him at like 112 in startups and be like, how did I come away with Jamar Chase at 112? And you're gonna be like, yeah, right. That's amazing. You got Jamar Chase and Alvin Kamara at the turn. Fantastic. I don't know how you did it, but fantastic. Now, final thing. And we're gonna talk about Patrick Mahomes, just for everybody knows. And I'm gonna my best friend told me a little joke. If everybody doesn't know, Jackson Mahomes, is his brother, the TikTok guy, the TikTok star. That's just all reference. My best friend texted me and said, this is what happens when you just let somebody's brother play football because their brother's TikTok famous. Because Pat Mahomes was playing so bad. And I thought I died laughing. Because normally it's like, oh, Jackson's getting clout because his brother's so good in the NFL. It's like, no, why did the Chiefs sign this guy just because his brother can dance? Like, but here's the overreaction. And it's actually your overreaction is that he is no longer a tier 1 quarterback. And that is to be determined by each individual person, but we're going to say 4 to 5 quarterbacks. So it means at best, he is the 6th best quarterback. Now, you can't answer this because it's your thing. I think this is a slight overreaction, but a reasonable reaction. It's slight. It's slight because like 5-4 is where I still see him, but if you want to put him at 6, I'm not going to argue with you. It's like Jonathan Taylor. It's a mini overreaction, but it's based on how we're seeing it. I mean, makes sense. The Chiefs they're not playing very well. And most of the time, like they lost, 27-3 today against the Titans. Yeah. And most of the time you could sit there and everybody can say, well, their defense is so bad. They're the, 26, but they only dropped 3 points today. They have a top 10 offense. They dropped 3 points. How? I don't care that Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's out. You have the best tight end in football. You have one of the best, if not the best receiver in NFL. You have potentially stated upon the GOAT of quarterbacks getting built up right now. How do you only score 3 points against the team that lost to the New York Jets?
I'm just going to point out, Derrick Henry had more passing touchdowns than Patrick Mahomes today. But this actually, my home league will listen to this, and this was what sparked this discussion. I think Mahomes, his weaknesses have shown through, and they was telling me I was crazy because he's great, you got to blame his offensive line, his defense, and I pointed out, I was like, well, if your defense sucks, that means it gives you more opportunities to score. You should be having shootouts,
garbage time at least.
Yeah,
he was hurt, I guess. That was a vicious shot that he took, and he cleared concussion protocol. I don't know what the NFL is doing. Daniel Jones cleared concussion protocol in 4 days after he's feeling a little woozy over here, and Patrick Mahomes did too.
Patrick Mahomes was carried off the field by his offensive line.
He was shaking.
Him clearing concussion protocol is very questionable because I'm pretty sure that he was out on his feet when because they would literally carry him off the field. Mm-hmm. But still, up to that point, he was not producing. You pointed this out. You said that in a recent interview, he pointed out that he's just now learning how to read defenses. And, that's okay, but can you say that you're the GOAT? Could you imagine if Tom Brady in his 3rd, 4th year in the league I'm just now learning how to read defenses? No, you got to be able to do that to be considered the elite player. Now, I'm not saying, he's going down multiple tiers. I'm saying you need to slide him from that tier 1 down to top tier 2, 2nd tier, like right there at the 6, 7.
Like you're essentially switching him and Dak Prescott is all you're doing. You're just swapping him and Dak. That's it. We're not doing much. You're just flipping those two, and he's moving down a spot into the top of the next tier. That's all you're doing. And I'm not because to me, that means you're saying Josh Allen, more valuable. Yeah. Kyler Murray, more valuable. Dak Prescott, more valuable. Justin Herbert, more valuable. That's 4 right there. We're not even talking about Rodgers. We're not talking about Brady because Brady's going to play for another 8 years. We're not talking about those guys even. So that's That's just, we're not even talking about Lamar yet, because Lamar, I can see him again, but that's 4 guys. Solid 4 startups, first 4 quarterbacks taken. They won't be because people, but then there's a lot of good quarterbacks, but I think then you get in that argument where is Mahomes 5? Is he 6? Is he 7? Is he 8 now? That might be an overreaction, but I agree. His play is falling off. He's turning the ball over more. I don't know what it is.
I feel like he does use his feet a lot. And I call a lot of his plays, the schoolyard plays, because a lot of it's busted plays. You take away his first read, and he's got to scramble. He's got to look for something. His receivers bail him out more than anything. And I'm going to tell you right now, Kelsey and Hill's yards after catch pads Mahomes' stats.
You know what's crazy is that this is the same argument I've been having for years about Russell Wilson. I've been saying this for a long time about Russell Wilson, that he's a backyard quarterback. He scrambles and, creates a random play because a receiver broke off a route that he didn't get hit on and creates this extra yardage play. So I'm not disagreeing with you because I've already seen it. I've already argued it. I'm going to agree with it. Now, I do think here's the problem with this. There's no way you will enter a startup next year and Pat Mahomes gets drafted any lower than the 3rd quarterback. There is no way it will happen at a consistent rate. Like his ADP will be the QB 1, 2, or 3. That's just what will happen because people are going to say he's young. He's on a great offense. He's got a great coach. He's got great weapons, which is really all you really need. But yeah, so that is our overreaction segment. And this episode is winding down. But before we go, let's talk about some trade review. So I'm going to let you start. You can give me a trade that you've recently done that maybe I haven't discussed with you already. And then I'm going to tell you about my trade day in one of my leagues.
Yeah, this is the one trade that I liked. I like this. I sent it out. Guy countered with some mess, but I really liked it. You got feedback, and that was I'm a middle of the road team. I have Darren Waller, who is arguably, we're looking at tight end 1 potential. So I offered up. The guy has just about the entire Miami Dolphins roster on his squad. So I offered up Gesicki, Gaskins, and a second for Waller, and a third. Guy sent back some mess. I think that was a fair trade, a fair trade to at least maybe get the conversation started. He flat out denied it. Didn't even reply to how do you feel? Because I'd sent out the, slid into those DMs like we always do. Hey, look, I'm about to send you an offer. I know that you're interested in Waller. You've sent me multiple offers. Here's something that I'm considering. Flat out cold-hearted. Denied it. No DMs. So, what is your thoughts on that offer? Was I asking too much?
So
not enough.
So you sent me this earlier today, and I didn't really discuss it because I was like, well, if he accepts it, that's pretty cool. So here's the thing. I think you did the trade at the wrong time because Myles Gaskins just shit the bed last week. That's the issue. And Darren Waller, I guess, was out this week, right? You know what I'm saying? So like the values are a little different and everything. Right, because you're wanting to gift him Darren Waller in this situation.
Yeah, he's been on me for 2 weeks and sending offers.
And so okay, sorry. So let me retract. So you're getting Gaskin off a bad week, and Gesicki is clearly below Darren Waller, so it's a downgrade, but it makes the package. In a second, here's the thing. I think this is a very fair deal. Fair return for Waller. I'd be okay receiving this. I'd actually want more. I thought you were being very generous here. I thought it'd be good if he took it because it gives you running back depth. You drop a tier in tight end, but then you gain a 2nd round pick, which is a top potentially top 20 to 24 in that range. Rookie, could be better. For him, it is interesting that he didn't accept. I think it might have just been timing because Darren Waller's out. I think that could really be all it was. He didn't want to risk losing his tight end this week for, you know what I mean? That's the only thing I can think of that he just declined it. Because there's obviously nothing you can do. If a guy doesn't say, change this to this, if he doesn't say that, then I guess he's not interested. And now if he comes back, you offer a little more. Be like, I was trying to give you a good deal when Waller was out, but Waller's back now. It's top 5 tight end play this week. So, I mean, I don't know, but it's an interesting situation where you're in because I thought that's a fair return. It really is. But I would have been pushing for more.
I thought it was good.
Like I would literally be like, give me Gesicki and a 23 first. Like I would be asking for a first round pick in return. That's just me because I'm greedy like that. I would always want a first return if I'm downgrading. Okay, so the deal, you discussed it, we already talked about it, but so I've been discussing with this guy, and now I need running back help really bad in this league because I was in bye week hell. I'm 5-1. I'm a top 4 scorer in the league, and I have Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris. Sounds fantastic, but we have IR, buy. So I was starting Brandon Bolden and Kyle Juszczyk this week at running back. There's nobody else on the waiver wires because it's a 12-team league, but it's like 25 to 30 man rosters, pretty deep rosters because we have a tax squad as well. So people are just plugged up. There's nobody really to take and start outside of those guys. This guy's been wanting Najee Harris for me for several weeks, and I had somebody in one of my leagues tell me, "Do not trade him. Do not trade him. His value is only going to go up in the offseason, same as Barkley's did, same as that everybody said." And he wanted really bad. He's like, "I'll give you Calvin Ridley." I said, "No." He said, "All right, I'll give you Calvin Ridley and Jimmy G." I said, "No." Calvin Ridley, Myles Gaskins. No. Calvin Ridley in a first. My interest has just become peaked. But remember, I need running back help this week. I don't want to start Kyle Juszczyk. I just don't. Brandon Bolden, I'm okay. But Kyle Juszczyk, I don't want to start a fullback. I just don't. So I said, here's Najee Harris. I will gift you Najee Harris. I'll be very generous. And you're going to give me Calvin Ridley, Chase Edmonds, and your first round pick. There was no trade discussion. There was no counter. He hit accept, which when that happens, you get that tiny bit of panic that's like, did I just get fleeced? Because he accepted that way too fast.
Yeah.
But I don't think I did. I think I made out pretty well.
Yeah, when you sent this over to me, I said smash accept immediately because I thought he sent it to you and you. But yeah, I mean, I think you came out well ahead of that deal. Edmonds is one of those RB2s that you're going to plug in on bye weeks and stuff. He's not going to set the league on fire, but he's going to be a contributor. He's going to get you the points when needed. Ridley's only going to get better, especially once they bring in Matt Ryan's successor. Once Kyle Pitts develops a little bit more, takes more pressure off him, Ridley's stock's just increasing. And you said the first is going to be a very favorable one.
Well, no.
Yeah.
No. This first is he's sitting 5th in the league right now in 12 team. So potentially this could put him somewhere between like 1.6 and like 1.10. That range. He's too good to fall into like the bottom 4, but he's not good enough to win the league, in my opinion. That's just me. Granted, Najee Harris is a pretty good player. So that's where I'm at. Now, I got told by somebody, when I told them this, I told you and I told a couple of people, just I talked to people that I like to talk about trades with. Regardless, you guys could all tell me, the 4 people that I talked to could all tell me I got a bad deal, and I'm still doing what I'm doing. But I just like to hear other people talk about me. That's all I want. But he told me flip Chase Edmonds immediately with a pick for a better running back, like immediately. And so I started thinking, like, who then? Who am I going to flip? Like, what am I like? Am I going to pair Chase Edmonds and that first and get DeAndre Swift? Is that even possible? Like, do you think the guy would even do something like that? And then I was like, no, because it's the same guy I just got Chase Edmonds from. So then I got stuck. I said, who do I go out and get? I can't go get Jonathan Taylor. I already own Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook. I just traded away Najee Harris. I feel like Zeke is too old to send a first plus an RB2. I don't know. I got stuck in that. But what do you think I should do with that? Because I'm getting Dalvin Cook back next week.
I would look at the Mixon owner and maybe do Edmonds in a second and try to get Mixon. I think that's a definite upgrade, especially with that offense and Chase taking where they're not able to stack the box. I mean, I'd be looking at maybe Mixon. I'd be looking at the Barkley owner.
I really thought about that. I really did.
Sweet talking be like, he's got that bad knee. Start putting that doubt of injury in his head. I mean, hell, in a redraft league, I just got Barkley for Miles Sanders and Goddard for Barkley and a kicker. And I
turning away Miles Sanders is fantastic because if you know me, I don't like Miles Sanders at all. And now I know he got hurt today, and that's not a good evaluation of his talent or play and everything. And I don't like players getting hurt, but I said stay away from Miles Sanders at all costs.
Yeah, we discussed it on a previous episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, you talk to the Barkley owner, make that doubt in there. Also, maybe seeking out the Kamara owner.
Okay, so you know what? Here, I like this. We'll table this because I don't go too deep, but you're coaching me on this. I'm gonna take this advice, and I'm just gonna knock on somebody's door. I'm gonna ring those DMs. Be like, hey, are you home? Do you have time to talk about our Lord and Savior Chase Edmonds and the Holy Bible of a second round draft pick? Like, can I interest you in maybe improving your team both now and next year's draft? The gift just keeps on giving. So that's actually going to do it for us here on our episode 15 of the Cheap Seats, where when you can't see things from far away, but the Cheap Seats, we provide Dynasty clarity. Be sure to subscribe down below on YouTube. Follow us if you're listening on, Speaker, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. Like us. Stay tuned every week. Every Thursday we drop this. Also, go seek us out everywhere else. Facebook is the place that delivers info everywhere. But if you're young and hip, we're also on Instagram, posting there. And if you're even more young and hip, we're posting on TikTok. We got content all the time dropping there. And on Twitter, if you want to ask us some questions, hit up my DMs on Second and Short Podcast. Hit up Jason's DMs at
it's TZLEY822. Slide into those DMs. Definitely. We're always willing to talk. It might not be the quickest response, but we have like a 99% response rate on any sit-start question, any trade questions, everything. We definitely will give you some feedback.
And we will not be those content creators that you ask us, this guy or this guy, and we just say a name. I'm going to give you a reason on why I believe that. Because I'm not just picking a name out of a hat like some people. I'm actually going to give you a legit. And Jason does the same. Jason will say, I like him this week because of the matchup. Not just because Mike Williams is his favorite player or whatever, he's not Mike's agent. That's why. We're going to give you legit reasons because we're doing this to actually help you, not to make ourselves look good. Simple as that. So with that being said, thank you guys for listening. Tune in elsewhere. See us next week. Listen again. Rewind this episode. Listen again. And have a good day.